Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation and recording for the part of the lesson that has looking at the textbook questions for Han emperors in China, the next dynasty of focus for our unit on Asia. Before we get started, please let me encourage you to open up to today's lesson and to scroll down the correct section, and please get ready to answer the key concept questions as they appear. Let's go ahead and get started with setting the stage first. Under Shi Huangdi, the Qin dynasty had unified China, and Shi Huangdi established a strong government by conquering the rival kings who ruled small states throughout China. After Shi Huangdi died in 210 BC, his son proved to be a weak and ineffective leader, and China's government fell apart. Let's get to the first section right now. The Han restore unity to China. Rumblings of discontent during the Qin dynasty grew to roars in years after Shi Huangdi's death. Peasants were bitter over years of high taxes, harsh labor quotas, and a severe penal system. They rebelled. Rival kings were eager to regain control of the regions that they had held before Shi Huangdi. They raised armies and fought over territory. Liu Bang founds the Han dynasty. During the civil war that followed, two powerful leaders emerged. Shi Yangwu was an aristocratic general who was willing to allow the warlords to keep their territories if they would acknowledge him as their feudal lord, and Liu Bang was one of the Jiang Yu's generals. Eventually, Liu Bang turned against Jiang Yu, and the two fought their final battle in 202 BC. Liu Bang won and declared himself the first emperor of the Han dynasty, and the Han dynasty, which ruled China for more than 400 years, is divided into two periods. The former Han ruled for about 2 centuries until AD 9, and after a brief period when the Han were out of power, the later Han ruled almost another 2 centuries. The Han dynasty was so influenced in China that even today many Chinese call themselves people of the Han. Liu Bang's first goal was to destroy the rival king's power, so he followed Shi Huangdi's policy of establishing centralized government, in which the central authority controls the running of a state. Reporting to Liu Bang's central government were hundreds of local provincials calling themselves commanderies. To win popular support, Liu Bang departed from Shi Huangdi's strict legalism. He lowered taxes, softened harsh punishments, and people throughout the empire appreciated the peace and stability that Liu Bang brought to China. Let's go to the next section here. The Empress Liu. When Liu Bang died in 195 BC, his son became emperor, but in name only. The real ruler was his mother, Empress Liu. Although Liu had not been Liu Bang's only wife, she had powerful friends at court who helped her seize power. The empress outlived her son and retained control of the throne by naming first one infant and then another as emperor. Because the infants were too young to rule, she remained in control. And when Empress Liu died in 180 BC, people who remained loyal to Liu Bang's family, rather than to Liu's family, came back into power, and they rid the palace of the old empress's relatives by executing them. Such palace plots occurred often throughout the Han dynasty. Traditionally, the emperor chose the favorite among his wives as the empress and appointed one of her sons as successor. Because of this, the palace women and their families competed fiercely for the emperor's notice. The families would make alliances with influential people in the court, and the resulting power plays distracted the emperor and his officials so much that they sometimes could not govern efficiently. The Martial Emperor. When Liu Bang's great-grandson took the throne, he continued Liu Bang's centralizing policies. Wu Di, who reigned from 141 to 87 BC, held the throne longer than any other Han emperor. He is called the Martial Emperor because he adopted a policy of expanding the Chinese empire through war. Wu Di's first set of enemies were the Jiangju, who were fierce nomads known for their deadly archery skills from horseback. The Jiangju roamed the steppes of the north and west of China. They made raids into China's settled farmland, and they took hostages and stole grain, livestock, and other valuable items. The early Han emperors tried to buy off the Jiangju by sending them thousands of pounds of silk, rice, alcohol, and money. Usually the Jiangju just accepted these gifts and continued their raids. But when Wu Di realized that the bribes were simply making the Jiangju stronger, he sent more than 100,000 soldiers to fight them. To help defeat the Jiangju, Wu Di made alliances and allies of their enemies. In the primary source reading here, the Jiangju had defeated the king of Yuasi people and had made his skull into a drinking vessel. As a result of the Yuasi bore a constant grudge against the Jiangju, and though as yet they had been unable to find anyone to join them in the attack on their enemy. When the emperor, Wu Di, heard this, he decided to try and send an envoy to establish relations with the Yuasi. After his army forced the nomads to retreat into Central Asia, Wu Di attempted to make his northwest border safe by settling his troops on the Zhangju's former pastures. And although this tactic succeeded for a time, nomadic raiders continued to cause problems during much of China's later history. Wu Di also colonized areas to the northeast, now known as Manchuria, and Korea. He sent his armies south, where they conquered mountain tribes and set up Chinese colonies all the way into what is now modern-day Vietnam. By the end of Wu Di's reign, the empire had expanded nearly to the bounds of present-day China. Please proceed to the next section, and proceed accordingly into a highly structured society. Thank you.